What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today I want to see if I can do a little new series and kind of make it for introducing new players into the game. Sometimes we don't know what we're trying to do and what strategy, especially from other card games. We want to kind of fit that mold, right? So without further ado, let's talk about aggro decks in generalization, shall we? Okay, if you're coming from places like Magic and everything like that, most players are not used to certain terminology, especially if it's even a brand new card game to them. If you're coming in brand new, I want to talk about aggro decks in generalization. What are they? What kind of expected play of the format is now to what it was in the past? As you guys know, in the past, there are a few aggro decks that existed, and that does relate to the fact of Rookie Rush. I would claim Rookie Rush is our first ever true aggro deck. And if you guys didn't know what that was straight up just playing 2-cost rookies and just slamming it down each and every turn. Doesn't matter how much memory your opponent gives you, you'll hopefully choke them out. And it just proceeds there. Over time, the deck fell out of favor because the game favored stacking decks, and they were able to manage resources a lot better. And those mid-range deck strategies kind of overpower the usual aggro style of play. But as time went on, we ended up gaining access to new and better styles. So they kind of reinvigorated and relived aggro strategies once we got closer to this current format. A lot of it was only red hybrid being that fiercely known aggro deck. There were a few in other colors and everything like that once we got to this point, but like the true king that back when we finally got to it and we can look at it was pretty much Cressheart itself. Cressheart was notoriously known as an aggro based strategy. Not many cards or decks could actually counteract its speed, to the point where they had to limit Jamon ×4 to slow the deck down a little bit. And that restriction definitely made this deck a little bit slower, and you couldn't just wombo combo out. But the deck is a very powerful deck indeed. The deck centralizes on getting your key components and hiding them under your tamers to cross into your ×3, ×4, ×5, ×7, or even to superior mode itself. These abilities allowed you to manipulate a game state where you were pretty quick and you threaten your opponent's security so quickly that your opponent didn't have much time to react. That is the idea of an aggro based deck. This deck isn't more an OTK style of play where players will clear out in 1 stacks, 1 turn. This deck definitely applied damage as the games went on. You were swinging in as much as you could, because as long as there was 1 tamer, most of your stuff just hit under it, and then you had a second resource system. And that led into being great for a lot of players, and it definitely showed. Nowadays, Cressheart isn't as potent, but it is getting new support coming in the form of BT19. So Cressheart could definitely make a resurgent. So just keep this in mind when it comes down to deck building. But currently, one of the more aggro-based strats is Ancient Greymon. Ancient Greymon focuses on dealing a lot of damage, being able to do like a mid-range kind of style where it pops opponent's Digimon when you do your Wind Digivolving or on play, and then basically making sure that when it goes pop, you're ready to reset with your tamers as hybrids and just go from there, allowing yourself to set yourself up to apply great damage. I think a lot of players will get very comfortable if they start playing aggro based strategies, and this is one of those better nuances that have a lot of support coming up. So if you're able to get yourself Ancient Greymon and you want to apply pressure and deal a lot of damage, this is a deck for you. This deck basically focuses on comboing with its Burning Gray to go into Goonie to Ancient Greymon, clear some security, and then it goes pops, set yourself back up to do it again the following turn. So all this does add up to being key centralized pieces, and I mean, there is nothing wrong with this style of play. Aggro is going to do what Aggro wants to do, and that is clear security as fast as possible with very little commitment on board right away to do so. Then we do have Blue Hybrid, which is another aggro based strategy focusing around Ancient Garuru. So on play, when Digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to hand, and then when effect adds a card to yours or your opponent's hand, your opponent adds the top card of the security stack to their hand. This is vitally important because the strategy is plain and simple. Being able to bounce one of your opponent's threats on board if they don't have a protection skill. This means this deck will inevitably allow you to combo even further. So just keeping this in mind when you are deck building, that this deck focuses on strictly taking advantage of its key boss monster, and that is Ancient Garuru. But being able to, balance, remove a security is always fun chip damage, and especially because you have the two Kojis that one gives jamming, one will make it so it's unblockable. Really doesn't matter if your opponent can't interact with killing tamers. This is vitally important. But the deck has a lot of power. It's, the Lobomon combo to get into Ancient Garuru is always just plus value, and with the new Ancient Garuru, as long as you're dealing some damage, bouncing some things, you can get a couple swings in before your opponent's even ready to promote a counter attack. So if you can clear out their security with this, you're very solid. Then we do have another Cressheart kind of S deck, and that is Blue Flare. Blue Flare is known for its aggression. With the fact that it has an access to jamming and being able to combo with Greymon and male Bergermon, security plus 1/2 damage jamming really makes your opponent have a bad time, and then can lead into really crazy shenanigans with, especially with Z Greymon, where it can restand if your opponent has 2 or more, and then boom. This strategy very much focuses originally on your opponent's ability to have bodies on board. If your opponents had 2 Digimon, this deck really punished that ability because it requires 2 Digimon to unsuspend or even add more stun. So this deck has a little bit of a stun feature with it, being able to, if they have less resources, you get the stun your opponent can't attack or block until the end of opponent's turn. This is vitally important. I mean, it's not as important now because Alliance kind of gets around, they can't attack or block. You basically use that DP and give it to a bigger dude, and then you swing in. So keeping this in mind, the deck has a lot of potential and synergy with itself, and it is a notoriously strong deck. The ability to tuck your sources underneath your tamers and then just having Metal Greymon cycle in and out when you need it to is really useful. Then Bloomlord was another deck that I would classify as an aggro strat. Main core ideology is here to get to Bloomlord. With that extra security, the wider your board gets, the more damage you can apply in its first couple swings, and that's what it's kind of here for, is just to get that extra damage output and clear out as soon as possible. There is no other real crazy shenanigans with this strategy. I mean, having Quantumon is a really good plus, but basically what you would do is if your board was wide enough, you can clear 2 to 3 security, if not more, and then basically get into Quartzmon to lock out your opponent's game's comeback strats. And they're very powerful. Its biggest weakness was the Death X existence in the game, and now Aces being a threat, this deck kind of struggles a little bit more because if they don't answer properly, that Ace could just screw you up so badly. So keeping this in mind, let's go into the next one. Purple definitely got hit with its big boy for aggression, and that was Beelzemon. Beelzemon focuses solely on the fact that you're going to mill yourself out and mill yourself to a high enough number where Beelzemon X Antibody could easily swing in and clear house for game. So being able to trash for every 10 cards in your trash the top card of your opponent's security stack means if you get to 30, that's 3 security gone, and your opponent is just going to laugh at you. Major weaknesses that it ran into was in decks with redirect or blockers or protection skills that made it so that the deck couldn't get that extra lethal is very much one of the bigger problems of this deck. But just keeping this in mind across the board, it looks pretty solid, right? Then we do have Imperial Jamon. Imperial Jamon would fall under like a more combo strat, but it is definitely aggression. It has always been, even from the early days. Goal was to deal as much damage to your opponent's security every turn with its unsuspend, swing in again. So it brought it back with the Jogger's abilities of like Pyildramon being able to stun their board though, so they can't mount a counter attack and then swing in for 2 checks by itself. And that's really important to take into account, especially even with the ability of partition to kind of separate its champions to replay them out. You can just combine again and get some extra damage in again because it resets the Digievolution. So at the end of the day, there is a lot of aggression. And if you guys are looking to play any of these, let me know down in the comments. What aggro strat are you guys excited for? I think I'll talk about other ones and what kind of concepts would you like me to cover? Would you like me to cover mid-range next, control, or, you know, combo, as well as any other random archetypes? I will have a miscellaneous one video, but if this video does quite well and gets you aggressively pumped, hopefully, guys, you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.